We're going to go through the full process from creating the profile to setting up to optimizing the parts that actually matter. We're not just going to cover the theory and leave you to figure it out on your own. I'm going to walk through every part of the process with you with a real example plumbing and heating business. To make that easier, I've put together a free checklist that we'll be using throughout the video that you can use for your own business. We'll literally be working through it together as we go along. So you're not guessing what to do, you'll know exactly what goes where. Now, I will explain to you why we're doing certain things so you can understand why you're doing it as you follow along. And as much as I would like to cover every factor in depth, doing that would easily double the length of this video. So we're going to focus on the things that actually make the biggest difference for now. And even without going deep on the theory, you're still going to know more than most plumbing businesses already do, even the established ones. If the checklist looks like a lot right now, don't worry. The more you see in there, the less you actually have to think about while doing this. We've basically done the thinking part for you, you just need to follow it. So let's get into it, grab a cup of tea, download your checklist, and let's start with creating and setting up your Google business profile. Here I'm in the free checklist that you can find in the description and use to follow along for your own business. Before we start optimizing anything, we need a profile to work with. You've got three options here. You can claim an existing profile, optimize one you already have, or create a brand new one. For this video, we're going to create a new profile so you can see the full process from scratch. Now, real quick, Google sometimes creates profiles automatically using third-party data. So if your business already exists on Google Maps and you didn't set it up, you'll want to claim it instead of creating a duplicate here. You can find a link to the Google Business Profile creation page right here in the checklist. It's the first row here, so I'll just click this and it'll take us to a new tab. Once you're on this page, just press start and it should open a tab that looks like this. Here you can just put your real business name. Your business name itself is actually a ranking factor. It can either help you get found more or make it really hard. We have a full video that covers that topic. If you haven't got a registered name yet, it would be worth to learn about that first before setting everything up, or if you're just interested to see how that works. In your name, trying to add extra keywords that are not part of your actual name is one of the easiest ways to get flagged or suspended, so try and avoid that. But we're just going to put our name, then you want to hit create a business with this name. Business category for this industry, plumbers pretty much have one category. It is literally just plumber. So just select that. If you're a gas engineer, we'll cover that example later on in the video. You don't have to worry about that for now. You can put plumber or gas engineer. We'll break it down more later. Hit next. We don't have a physical office, but if you do, you want to hit yes and just add that. We're going to hit no for now. And here you don't want to worry about this for now, so we're just going to put our main location, also UK. You just want to do one for now. We'll come back to this section properly later. Let's hit next. And here you just want to fill out your contact information. So you want to add your main phone number. This is either going to be your cell phone or office line, and your website if you have one. So we're not going to do a phone number, but we will do our website. Go to UK. Cool. And with this, you want to make sure that this matches everywhere else online. This is what we call your NAP, the three sections that we've just covered: your name, your address, and phone. NAP consistency is one of the most important ranking factors there is. It means having a consistent phone number and the exact name pretty much to the letter across every listing online. If you don't, Google isn't going to connect the dots, and that leaves you with a weaker profile. For example, in one city there might be two businesses with a very similar name, Smith's Plumbing and Smith Plumbing. Those could be completely different businesses. Same with a business that uses your office line compared to your mobile line. Google has no idea there's a connection between those numbers. It could treat you as two separate businesses. If you have one profile or social media profile that you're making really strong and active, and Google interprets that as a completely different business, you're going to have no benefit on your Google business profile from that. So for now, this is what we're going to put. Add chat, you want to leave this out because if your main goal is getting calls and website inquiries, this is just another button to dilute the strength of your profile. So we're just going to hit next. Now it's going to ask us to verify that address. Because this is an example, we're going to hit verify later, but you can put in your typical address. And now it's going to ask us to add our services. So here you really want to just select the main ones that are most relevant to your plumbing business. And for now, that's all we're going to choose. Don't add custom services yet. We're going to do this properly later on. We're just going to pick up the suggestions that Google gives us for now. So let's hit next. And business hours, we also want to skip. So just hit. And same with business description, we want to skip this too. And your photos. All of these settings here, we're not going to change them here. Cool, so we just create our profile. Because we're not verified, it's not going to show us as visible, but yours will either be in the same stage or your profile will already exist, or you're just going to go through the verification process. This is your Google Business Profile dashboard. It's very simple and has everything you need. You don't have to worry about most of it for now though. Here we can go through all of the settings on our terms without Google suggesting which ones to add. The first section we just went through was basically a tutorial screen, which simplifies everything and doesn't include a lot of the stuff. So we're going to jump back into the location section that we just skipped past, and you can find it here in the Edit Profile tab. Then you want to go to the Location tab. Like we mentioned before, in this section it splits depending on your setup. If you've got a physical location, you want to add your address. We don't have one, so we're not going to worry about this part. We're going to go with service area. This is what most plumbing businesses will also choose. But before we jump into this, it's worth noting that if you do have an office, this section is straightforward, yes. But most importantly, having a real physical location is always stronger from a ranking perspective and a convergence point, as you get a physical pin on the map and you can force Google to know your actual location. So if you're serious about long-term growth, an office is something worth working towards. On average, profiles with a map pin have a 40% higher engagement rate than profiles without, so it's something worth having. However, you shouldn't be discouraged if you don't have a physical location, because a lot of businesses that do have a physical location don't even have optimized profiles to begin with, so the benefits they're getting are not really there either way, but it's worth knowing about it. And with service areas, don't try to cover everything. Adding loads of areas doesn't mean you'll rank everywhere. Sometimes it actually weakens your positioning. So for example, if you cover a wide area like this, instead of ranking in the middle of each town individually, Google can sometimes place you somewhere in the middle of that overall shape, which is what we see hurting businesses that have as many nearby areas added as possible without a clearly defined physical location. Google doesn't reward you for covering more miles with your profile, it rewards the most relevant profile in that area, and that's a big difference. So instead of spreading yourself too thin, focus on one area and dominate it. In our example here, this nearby town might not seem far from Oxford, and sure, you might be willing to drive that far, but we're not looking for how far you can drive in one day. We're looking at the area that you're most relevant to. Think doing 80 to 90% of your jobs. That should be your area. It is better to be the main plumber in Oxford than a plumber that tries to be in Oxford and another nearby town. You might think you'll show up in the middle of Oxford and then in the middle of the other town, but Google is actually going to draw an invisible area around your business and put you in the middle of it. If that middle is the middle of nowhere, it becomes pretty hard to be relevant to anything. It shouldn't work like this, but this is a common bug that we see affecting Google business profiles, so you want to be careful of it. Especially if you're just starting out, you want your profile to be as potent as possible and as relevant as possible. You don't have the strength to compete across that large of an area to begin with anyway. And a strong profile will always rank on the outskirts of your main area too and spread a couple of miles out, like in this example. So focus on having a strong profile over a wide area. Whereas with the opposite, a weak profile spread across many areas will struggle to rank properly in either one. So it's really important to just keep your focus tight, especially if you're starting out. If you look at something like our example of Oxford and pull search data, Google estimates around 2,500 searches a month for the term plumber Oxford, not including any other terms. Realistically, that can be an estimate between anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 actual searches per month. So 2,500 customers is definitely more than enough to build a plumbing business around. You don't need to add another small town with 1,000 customers just to make the service area bigger. So let's hit save on our service area. That's going to be us done with that. And now that we have our service area, let's revisit the category section to confirm we have the right one for your plumbing business. Your primary category is one of the most important ranking factors on your entire profile, and it's really important to have the right one. It tells Google exactly what you do and what searches you should show up for. This is where you can fill it out. So as you can see earlier, we put primary category plumber, and I mentioned if you're a gas engineer, we'll get to that next. So how do we check that you have the right category and that you have the best one for your business? So instead of guessing this, what you want to do is look at what's already working for top businesses in your category across other cities. So we want to open a new tab and you want to search for your main service in your area or a related area. So let's quickly look up something like London plumber. And if we scroll down, we can see that, as expected, the plumbers that are showing up all have the category of plumber. And if we open these up, they're all showing up as plumber, as that's the most relevant thing to our search. So, it makes sense if you're a plumber, you want to have the category of plumber. As soon as you put something like gas engineer, well, now you get a lot more gas engineers, and then completely different competition to the plumbers. They have way less reviews, but it's really important because if all you are is a gas engineer, you don't want to be competing against plumbing companies that have 2,000 reviews, vice versa. So, there's a lot more examples as well. You've got central heating service. So you really have to find related businesses across different cities of things that you do and use that to figure out your category. Once you have your primary category confirmed, you can see that there is a button here to add another category. You can have up to 10 categories. Your primary category is the strongest out of them all. Your secondary categories, they need to be the most relevant categories to your business and only things that you provide. So to find the best ones for these, we find them a little bit differently. And here we can use a completely free tool to do this. It's called GMB Everywhere, and that's where these orange buttons come from. It lets you see popular categories instantly, and it also shows you related categories that you might not have thought of. It's free, you just need to sign up and use it. So over here, if we go ahead and hit find categories, it's going to pull up categories that are related to our primary category. And just like you checked previously, if you found any businesses that are most related to your type of plumbing business, like gas engineer here, you can just hit category finder here too, and it'll pull up the most popular categories for gas engineers. You don't want to hit all 10 just for the sake of filling it out, as you don't want to dilute your profile with things that are not relevant to your business. As you can see being listed here, there's some stuff that isn't going to apply to everyone. Most plumbers are not going to be well drilling contractors, so that one we can just completely ignore. Or most plumbers are not going to be a bathroom supply shop. It's a completely different type of business. Here I'm going to choose some categories for this business. Don't copy what I do, look through the way we're doing and find the best ones for your specific type of plumbing business. You might not offer any heating services in your business, so don't add any, but in this example, we're going to try and find some. So the primary category we've got is plumber. The related categories that we can see are things like drainage service, heating contractor, and all of these other ones. So for our plumbing and heating business, we're definitely going to run with plumber. We're going to choose heating contractor as well. We're also going to do gas engineer as a secondary category and gas installation service. The reason we're not choosing gas engineer as our primary category is because that is not the only thing that we do. We are a general plumbing company that also offers things like boiler repairs and boiler installations. So we also want to come up for those services. But we don't want Google to think that we are only a gas engineer, because some people are just that. So I'm going to have a quick look through these and find the best ones for this example business, and you can do the same to find the best ones for your business. If you can get close to 10, that's great, but we're only going to end up with 5 or 6 in our example, so don't try and force them just for the sake of getting as many as possible. We've gone ahead and added hours. In the future, if you get more data from your profile or remember that you didn't include a certain service, you can always come back here and re-optimize your profile to get even closer to a more optimized profile. It's always better to start with less and a tight profile than filling up with information that isn't relevant. I wanted to use the categories I chose in GMB Everywhere as an example to show you a problem you might come across too. The categories GMB Everywhere pulls are mixed between UK and US categories. You might find some that don't work, but you can try and find other related categories or UK variants by typing the keywords yourself in this section here. So if I go to save this, you'll see that it's throwing an error on heating contractor. So the best thing that you can do is remove any category that's throwing an error and type a related keyword yourself. So if we type in heating, we see that the closest relevant category for the UK is central heating service. So we're just going to replace it with that. And now it should let us save. There we go. So that's categories done. We're now going to move on to your services, and we did your categories first as they're going to help us massively to come up with your services and make it easier for you. So now that we've done our categories, before we move into services, let's quickly get back into our free checklist and see what progress we've made. So if we go back here, I'm going to quickly check off everything now we've just done. So complete, complete, complete. We've done our category and we've done our secondary categories. We're now onto the services section, and as you can see here, it says to use the services prompt. The prompts you can find down here in this tab, and the services prompt is the first one here. So what we want to do is double click on it, hit Control A or Command A if you're on Mac, Control C or Command C, and then we want to go and put it into any AI chatbot like ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever you like to use if you have any already. You can find all of the tools we use down here in the free tools tab. So we'll just go here. You can see ChatGPT is here. I'm going to press Control C and left click it. And left click the link. That's going to open ChatGPT. I'm going to remove this old one, and I'm going to press Control V or Command V to paste in the prompt that we just took. It's not going to be ready straight away. You're going to have to fill it out with your business information. Fill in the things that you already know and the things that we collected, like the primary category. Some of this stuff we haven't covered, but it's up to you because you'll probably know what it is because it's your business. Secondary categories, I'll fill those out in a minute, but as you can see, this is where they're going to go. So now I'm going to cut to my prompt filled out. So once you have your prompt filled out, like we've done here, with your name, your location, the type of service that you provide, your main focus, your categories, which we found earlier, and the core services that you do alongside your categories. Not all of your core services will be a category, but it might be something you provide, like emergency plumbing isn't a category, but emergency plumbing, it's very popular and easily recognizable by your customers, and it's something that a lot of plumbing businesses advertise, so it's just important that we include it here too. And this will work if you just run it as it is, but we want to take it a step further. What we want to do is we want to take your secondary categories and we want to take them back to GMB everywhere. So I'm quickly going to snap back into GMB everywhere and show you what that looks like. So if we go back to GMB everywhere and we've got our categories again, if we scroll down here, we've got related services. So if we just hit view more, it's going to list the most popular and the most related services to our category. So we're just going to hit copy all. We're going to head back to our prompt and we're going to list them all here. It doesn't really matter whether you categorize them here or not, the AI will figure it out. So then we want to go to our next category, which was this in our case. Copy all again. And we just want to paste it in. And we're just going to repeat the process for every single secondary and primary category that we have. So I'm going to speed this section up and you'll see the finished result. Okay, so we've got our completely finished prompt, and what we're feeding in is our categories, our actual services, and all of the related services for our official categories from GMB everywhere. What it's now going to do is it's going to take a mix of what we actually do, which is plumbing, our core categories, and our core services, and it's going to find every single service that can fall under that combination. So let's just hit run. So if we head back to our profile section, if we hit edit services, you can now see that our categories and some of the services that we chose earlier are going to be listed here. And if we hit add more services, there's going to be some other suggestions and also an option to add a custom service. So what we want is we want to take the services from the category that's listed and just add them down here. And again, you want to add as many as possible only if they're highly relevant to your business and things that you actually provide. You don't want to add things that you don't actually provide. Your profile will actually show up for these terms. And if your profile is showing up for these terms, but you don't actually provide those services and you don't serve customers for that thing, Google's going to start noticing these mismatches and it's only going to hurt you. So now what you want to do is you want to go through all of these and make sure that it's something that you provide. Okay, so once you manage to get that done and go through every single service in each one of your categories, your list should be very completed. And at the end here, you can also see some additional services that are recommended. They're in no particular order, but if they're things that are relevant to your business, it might be worth adding them under the relevant category. So this is what the completed profile basically looks like. Again, this is just an example. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm adding. I'm just filling in to kind of show what the services look like and kind of the amount that you would expect. As you can see, it's all about letting Google know exactly what you do. We've mentioned that we're a plumber. We've mentioned that our category is central heating service. But nowhere have we mentioned that we do gas safety certificates. And you can imagine if that's one of the services you provide, we haven't had the opportunity to list that anywhere yet. If you're on Google to guess what you do and figure it out for you, you've kind of already lost the race. So just make sure you get this done. Make sure you list exactly everything that you do and be as detailed as possible as long as it's relevant. And you should be good in this section. The next one is your description. For this one, we have another prompt that makes it easy to use. So let's go back into our checklist and find that one. So I'm just quickly gonna mark this one as complete. And here, as you can see, the next task, use description prompt. So if we go to our prompts tab, find a description prompt, double click it, select it, copy it back into ChatGPT. The great thing now is that you won't have to fill out the business information again because most of it is already here. So what you can say is, use the same information that you already have about my business from above. And really, you want to go through and just, check what kind of things are new and what applies to you. So certain things it's not going to have, so you need to fill it out. Things like your key strengths, maybe there's something specific that you guys do which is better. The more specific you can be, the better. You can mention whatever you like here. Things that you probably already tell your customers, like you've worked with every model of boiler that there is. If you're like a boiler specialist, things like that are good to mention. Financing options, people will look for those. Anything that we haven't had a chance to include yet that will build trust with your customers and help with the selling point, this is a good place to include it. Things like 24/7 availability, stuff like that. If you go through, you can fill out, you can see what's needed. And cool, it's done. So what we're aiming for here is not really stuffing and repeating loads of keywords because Google does reward that. We want to use relevant entities. Things like what we do, related services, our location. Those are all very important factors, but we also want to include other related entities that a good plumbing business would have. Things like financing options, if we're family owned, how many years we've been around for. Google, AI, and your customers will all look for this information. So it's important that you have it because they're trust signals. This isn't the place where we want to repeat individual services in a very detailed way like we just did with the services section. This is more of your front-facing description about your business that's there to build trust with your customers and get them to convert. You want family members to read this and go like, this looks like a trustworthy plumbing company. It looks like they care about my stress and my needs. I'm going to work with them. And we also have a very soft call to action at the end because we don't want to push them into booking. We don't want to push them into anything. They're already on our profile. They're going to that naturally if you make them feel safe and make them feel like you care. This is here just as a soft reminder that if they do need our help, that's where they can find it, but it's implied because they're on our profile. To add it, you just need to go back to your profile, edit profile, description, and paste it in. The limit is 750 characters. You really don't have to max out. We've had businesses rank with a lot less. This prompt, it gives you a good style of description that builds trust with your customers and includes as many relevant entities about a good plumbing business as you can fit in, while also being a reasonable length. So we're going to hit save. Next is your opening date. This one's simple. Just put the date your business started. You can find it over here in edit profile, scroll down under your description that we just did, opening date. Here, Google uses to work out how long you've been in business. And if you've been around 5 or 10 plus years, it can sometimes show that on your profile, which is always a bonus. It shows up as like a little text that people can see. Technically, Google doesn't verify this, but personally, I would just stick to your real date. There's so much you can improve on your profile and to make it stronger without trying to stretch things or hack them together, that if you've been open only 2 years, I wouldn't put 10. I probably wouldn't even put 5. If you've been open 4, you could potentially stretch that to 5, but the general rule of Google is simple. Although they don't check this or verify this, you don't want to risk getting penalized, especially in case someone reports you in the future. Because if your profile ever gets suspended for the sake of skipping a few steps now, that might not actually impact your overall bottom line. You could end up losing years of progress down the line. So just keep it accurate and move on. Here in our description, we've already written 5 years, so I'm just going to stick with something like this. And hit save. Next, if you scroll a little bit further down, are your opening hours. And these are way more important than most people realize because Google prioritizes businesses that are open at the time of the search. This is clearly visible with local cafes near you when you're searching for them in the middle of a town. If it's 5 p.m, most cafes are shut by 4. Guess which ones are going to get priority in the searches that show up. So if you've set your hours from 9 to 4 and someone searches at 6 p.m. for a plumber, you're very unlikely to show up. Now, cafes can't do much about this because they're physical locations. When their doors close, they're closed. But this is where plumbing is a little bit different. You're not a cafe that closes at 5. A lot of the time, you'll still take calls in the evening. So if you're available, you don't want your profile to limit that, especially if you're trying to grow your business. Think about how many people get home after work and have a plumbing problem that they realize all of a sudden, but they didn't know when they were at work. Now imagine if you're not showing up because Google thinks you closed at 4. If you offer emergency out of hours work and 24/7 call outs, you can just set your hours to 24/7, and that gives you a big advantage over all of your competitors who are showing us closed. Can you still show up without setting 24 hours? Yeah, of course. But if you are available around the clock, there's no reason to limit when people can find you. And you want to be as flexible with your hours as possible because it only benefits you long term. If you scroll a little bit further below that last section, you'll find your social profiles. Here, it's pretty straightforward. You just want to list as many relevant ones as you can. So your Instagram, your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter, and your TikTok. For a plumbing business, these are pretty much the most important ones. Google is basically telling you which social media profiles they want you to use. If you really want to go all out, you can get all of them, especially if you have, quite a big local plumbing company and everything's very official. I would definitely go for LinkedIn too. The Pinterest you can also do. None of these hurt. It just depends on how much time you have and how much effort you're willing to put in. At the end of the day, all of these things are just extra trust signals to Google and data points it can use to understand your business. The strategy you want to have for these, you don't have to post on these every day, especially if you're starting out, but just fill in the basics. Add your logo, add a name that matches your actual business name, put in your description something similar to the description that we just created, and for your main ones, get a couple of posts up. And if you do have the time, if you're not spending time on other marketing strategies, get a couple of posts here and there. Past jobs on Instagram, Facebook, put a couple on X, get a couple of before and after videos on TikTok. Just make yourself look active and it will benefit you long term. Now, you've probably noticed a pattern so far. This is all about giving Google as much clear and accurate information about your business as possible. Google can't rank or trust what it doesn't understand, so the more complete your profile is, the stronger it becomes. Let's scroll down a little bit to the special hours section, which is just below the hours section that we just completed. Here is the same thing. Things like bank holidays, schedule changes, just fill them in. It literally takes a couple of minutes, but it keeps your profile accurate and avoids confusing customers. Also, Google loves it. So if you don't know your exact hours for these holidays or what holidays actually exist, you can just quickly ask ChatGPT for your country and it'll give you the most popular events. Here, it's not about whether you're open or closed, it's about having a complete profile, because completeness in Google's eyes is a lot better than nothing, even if you're closed. So it's the same idea for the rest of these sections. None of them are really deal breakers on their own or have a massive boost, but you just want to have them filled out. So go through these, put in your hours for things like Good Friday. Let's say we're closed for early May bank holiday, we're open for Good Friday, save that. You can add more hours. A lot of this stuff isn't relevant to a plumbing business, but you can add online operating hours. That's a good one. So here I would just put 24 hours, because if you have a website and you're taking inquiries around the clock, that counts as online operating hours. So just fill it out, save. Do all of these, even if you're not a woman. You just have to put whatever they're asking for. Offer repair services. This is going to relate to things like boiler repair, so we'll just say yes. Payments, if you do financing options, stuff like that, if you have a card reader, you can probably take a bunch of different payments. NFC payments, those are popular too. Here, this doesn't really matter too much, but just select something standard like WhatsApp or Messenger. And your service options, again, these are like website quotes. Do you speak any languages or sign languages? Fill these out. So even if we have to put no, and just hit save, and boom, that's all of the extra options done, and you don't have to worry about them again. Let's quickly go back to your dashboard and have a look at what else we can tick off. So we've got other things like bookings and Q&A here. For most plumbing businesses, you don't need the bookings tab, especially if you're handling jobs over the phone and through email. This tab is useful for things like medical salons and barbershops, but it's not used by plumbing businesses. Then you've got the Q&A tab. Now, Q&A used to be a feature on Google business profiles, and it was a really great feature, but Google has started phasing this out and replacing it with AI generated answers that it's pulling for your whole business. So you want to ignore this, mainly because it shouldn't even be showing here, but I'm bringing it up just because it goes to show that because it's no longer here, it's another really strong point to have an FAQ section on your website, because like I mentioned previously, we're including different types of information. We haven't got answers to questions anywhere. What if someone is asking a question, what areas do you cover, like specifically, or what is your average cool out time, or specific details about your financing options? We haven't had a chance to list that anywhere here, so it's really important to have answers to those questions. The more data you can feed into these systems, the more benefits you reap. Next is your logo. So you can find that in the Photos tab. So if you just go over here, you can see the Add Logo box, and you just want to upload your business logo here. Some quick pointers about this: you want to make sure it's clear, high quality, and easy to read. Anything that's blurry, stretched, or complicated, it's not going to look good. This is what people associate with your business across all of your profiles online. So you want to make it look clean, memorable, and professional. professional. I've actually got a full video breaking this down, how to create a proper plumbing logo and most popular examples. So if you haven't got one yet, go and watch that after this if you want to know everything about plumbing logos. I'll include a link to that as well. But for now, just make sure you've got something solid uploaded here. I'm going to quickly pull up our example logo to use for reference. So in our case, this is our logo that we quickly came up with. It obviously represents a plumbing and heating company. The format you can have it in is 1:1. So you can play with rearranging it, resizing the actual image, or you can just crop it to the icon like we're going to do here to save time. In your cover photo, you really want to have something like a team photo or a photo of your van. Anything that's branded, that has faces in it of your team, that looks trustworthy is great. You don't want to have things like broken pipes, exploding pipes of water, things like that, because your customers are just not going to relate to those. So you want to skip over that completely. Next up, you've also got a section where you can add different photos. So these will be things like photos of your team, photos of different jobs you've completed, photos of different marketing materials that you have, maybe your sign out the front of your office, or your vans, or your business cards, or any sort of branding that you have. That all goes in here. So I've just gone ahead and added different example photos for the business. These all are here to represent a different type of photo that you want to include. You want to include way more photos than this. And I will flash on screen the specific examples and why they work well. So we've got a photo of our van. So your vehicle's out in the field, out around the town with familiar scenery is going to build trust to your customers. You can imagine if there's a really popular park or fountain in your town and you have a photo of your van against it, your customers will instantly recognize you as someone who's familiar with the place where they live. That builds trust instantly. Photo of your team wearing uniforms, again, another great one. Have that in the warehouse, have that out in the field, anywhere you want. That branding, again, it reinforces trust, so you want to include it. You want to have photos of different services that you provide, and your customers have no idea what they're looking at. So you want to make it as clear as possible. If you have something like a burst pipe repair job that you've carried out, you want to include a photo of that throughout the process, maybe at its worst when the pipe is literally exploding with water. But you also want to put someone on the photo that is a burst pipe, but you don't want to just upload a bunch of photos. And we have some different examples of different types of jobs that you can do this for. And another really great format for photos is before and afters. So you want to clearly label these and also just make it really clear after you've taken the photos what's actually in them. Because if you're taking these photos and you're not making the most out of them, you pretty much might as well not use them. The people that are going to see these photos, you have to remember, they don't have the experience that you do. So you have to kind of make it really simple for them to understand. That's why we have this branding that we've added, because it just makes it very easy for your customers to digest. It builds trust and it just shows that you're really on top of everything. You can get these edits done in something like Canva in 2 minutes, which is included in the spreadsheet as well. Another type of photo is the branding photo. So here you can see we've just got like an office shot with our logo and mug. Again, this just builds trust. It puts your business in different environments, on different materials, and it makes your customers think about you from different perspectives. If you're showing your office, that's going to build trust more than you just showing like old broken boilers in poor lighting. Now, just to clarify on the photo section, you do want multiple photos of the same type of job. Here we've just listed different examples of different types of photos, but what you want to be showing to your customers is that you do this consistently in different situations. You really want to aim for having at least 3 different sets of photos for each job, even more for your most popular services. So you don't want one example of a boiler repair that you did. You want multiple pictures or formats of pictures of one boiler repair job. And you want to do that for different boiler models in different environments. So an example of that is you did a boiler repair job, great. You want to have a process photo, so you working through the boiler, maybe with your tools out, something like that. And you also want to have a before and after photo to clearly show to your customers the work that was carried out. And you also want to have in different environments. You know, your customers don't just look for boilers. When you look at a boiler photo, the first thing as a plumber that you might see is boilers, but your customers subconsciously actually look at your photos to see if they can trust you and if you can help solve their problems. So they're actually looking at the surroundings too. You know, if you do a lot of boiler repair jobs in middle class homes, fancy homes, and people see like a fancy kitchen in the background, people that also have a fancy kitchen are going to resonate with that more than just with a photo of a rusty boiler that's taken in really poor lighting, because it makes them feel like, this is me. So if you fit a boiler in the kitchen, great, add photos of it. If you fit one in an attic, great, add it in. You fit one in the basement, great, add it in. It was a modern boiler for 5K, great, add it in. Old boiler from 40 years ago, great, add it in. Your customers are going to want to find things that are as relevant to them as possible, and that's what's going to build the most trust. And you can't really have a limit on how many of those you need. You know, it's not going to be like one photo and it's not going to be 10. You can have 100 of these and that's not going to hurt. For jobs that you don't carry out that often, you don't have to do this as intensely, but for something like boiler repair, you really do want to have that much intensity if that's one of your core services. The reason this matters so much is because all of this builds trust with Google. It can actually see these photos and what you do and interpret from your photos what's in them. But more importantly, it builds trust with your customers. This is one of the sections that people check the most. And you have to think about yourself. When you buy something on Amazon, you scroll through 10 photos of the product. Not because the 10th one is good and makes you decide, but because the action of scrolling is comforting. A lot of the time, you don't even know what you're looking at. You're not even reading the text on the photos that the editors spent so long putting there. You're just scrolling. And that's exactly what your customers want to do as well. They don't know the different boiler models. They have no idea what they're even getting, but they just want to scroll and they want to see that you do this consistently. So they don't mind flicking through 20 or 50 photos, seeing different sizes, shapes, different kitchen colors, you know, different wallpapers, different furniture styles. It's reassuring to them if they can see themselves in those photos, and it builds trust with your business even more. So that's kind of how you build trust with your customers through photos. And we've also covered how many photos you want. So let's quickly go over the quality of these photos. The best ways to get these photos for yourself is, you have to get a modern phone. It's worth the investment. It doesn't have to be the latest iPhone, but you want to have something with a great camera, because you're going to be taking a lot of these photos after every single job, and at some point you're going to have to invest in your business and yourself, whether that's with money, time, or effort. And given how easy it is, you really don't want to be the only person getting in your way of this. The biggest mistake business owners make with their photos is they take them at odd angles with strange crops that are kind of like tilted in very poor lighting conditions, and you really want to avoid this. You want to take photos like you actually want to show them to your customers, not like an afterthought that you wouldn't even look at yourself. So you might as well put the effort into it if that's going to help you get your next customer and grow your business. Next is the product section. Now, even though this is called products, most service businesses, including plumbers, use this to showcase their main services. Google's aware of this and everyone does it. It's a great way to showcase your core services and you can list them on your profile. Think of this as your main customer service facing services and the ones you actually want people to click on and inquire about. So earlier we added your regular services. Those are more like small data points for Google. It lists everything that you do and you might have 30, 40 or 50 of those. But this section is different. Earlier in one category you might have had 10 different variations of boiler services you provide. Whereas here you would really condense them down to a couple, like boiler repair and boiler installation, the things that are most known by your customers and most popular. Once you add these, each one of these serves as its own card under your profile and customers can scroll through them click on them, find out more information. You get a service name, description, a photo, and a link to your website. We'll take a look at it in a second. This section is also really good for your SEO. It gives you an option to link this card to your website. So it works really well if you have a matching page for this service on your website that customers can go to and Google can see as well. Those pages help support your profile, and you're feeding your profile with even more information about your business. It's basically another way to tell Google that you offer boiler repair. We've already mentioned it 3 or 4 times in some places. This is another place. You want to reinforce it across your profile basically wherever it makes sense, as long as you're not spamming. And you can add these services by going to the free checklist, grabbing the product's prompt, copying it like we did earlier, going to ChatGPT, and getting the results. As you can see, I've already got it here, and I've asked it to fill out the information it already has, because we don't need to repeat a lot of it. Include my core services, and I'm just going to run it and let it do its thing. And here we're just going to copy the information that we got in ChatGPT. For the category, you can create the category to whatever you want. So we can do boilers for something like boiler repair. Of course, this isn't the right category for this, and we already have a category here. The price you can just ignore, it's not relevant to this section. And then the website link, would be something like that. You always want to include a website link that matches the service you're linking to, as that helps the most. And then you just want to go ahead and choose a photo. With your photo, you really want to make sure that you have a photo that matches the service you're promoting. A lot of businesses are really lazy with this, and they just include either random photos or the same copy and pasted graphic with something like their logo and the name service, literally not changing even the name service. It literally says service. So don't do that. That's a great way to turn away your customers. It's a little bit better than doing nothing, but you really want to go into more effort in this. In this example, we don't have it. We are showing a burst pipe, which is an emergency, but you would want to go into more effort than this and actually make it clear that this is an emergency plumbing service and include a photo like this, which is actually appropriate. So next we just hit publish, and we can just go straight on to adding the next. So you really want to go ahead and just fill these out for as many core services that you offer. Again, we don't have a photo exactly for the service, but this is just an example, and we'll just add this. We're not going to finish the rest because it all follows the same process, but now you can add all of your services that you need exactly this way. Let's quickly go back to our Plumbers example to show you how these services will look. Our services will take about half an hour to get approved, and I just want to show you a quick example here. So this is just a random plumbing business that I found. This is kind of a good example of what not to do once you've added your products. Don't keep the same image. It just looks very lazy. Your customers will not read the small text down here. So it's kind of a waste of your service space. But it's always better than having nothing. But what I want to show you is even one of the biggest plumbing companies in the UK, in London, doesn't have their products listed. It's a very basic thing to do on Google Business Profile. So if you've gone this far in the tutorial, give yourself a pat on the back because you're doing better than one of the biggest plumbing companies in the UK. If they're watching this, someone should probably add their products in their Google Business Profile. Okay, so now that we're back in the dashboard, the next thing to look at is posts. You can find it over here in the tab. This is one of the easiest ways to keep your profile active and give Google fresh information. And they also give your customers more reasons to trust you when they land on your profile. It can also be used as another place to give Google more information about your services and business, which is always good. But we don't want to make this look like spam or like they were written to target specific keywords. as that can get flagged, and that's generally something we want to avoid. We want to make these look natural and like they blend in with the rest of your profile. So before we jump into make any of these, the way we're going to do them is we're going to lay down some foundation posts that will hold up your profile. So I've prepared a prompt that you can easily use to do this. So you don't have to come up with this yourself. But what it's basically going to do is it's going to lay down a couple of foundation posts, and you can choose which one you want, which are things like a welcome post or sharing a specific event. And then after that, we're going to lead into service-based posts. So we're going to have a post covering every single type of core service that you mentioned previously, like in your product section. So let's quickly go into the free checklist. And if we navigate to the prompts tab, we can see that the foundation post prompt is here. We want to select it and copy it. Then we want to go into ChatGPT and paste it in. And as always, we want to add that it should use our information that it knows. And one thing that we want to do with this prompt is actually select the type of foundation post that we want to lead with. So for a fresh profile, we're just going to go with a welcome post, and we're just going to hit enter. There you go. And that's literally all that we need. So we're just going to take this. I've switched over to a different profile where I can show you an example of the post. And what you want to do is take the ChatGPT generated post that we came up with and paste it into the update. Add an image, and you can also select a call to action. So you really just want a call now for your plumbing business, unless your update is about a new service or page on your website that you launched. You want to add an image with it, and that's everything you need. Like we mentioned completeness before, if Google has multiple post types, you really want to go and fill those out. So you also want to modify your posts to have some offers. If you want to run an offer, you can run an offer for free inspection. You don't have to give a discount, but it's still good to include different types of posts. Same for an event. Maybe you've got a Christmas special, 2-for-1 deals, or 15% off over Christmas. It's good to have that as a post. One of the sections we haven't looked at yet is reviews. So this business, of course, doesn't have any reviews. So let's take this as a moment to talk about how reviews on your Google business profile work. Obviously, 5-star reviews are the strongest, but lower star reviews still have value. Google cares more about your profile being active than whether every single review is perfect. And realistically, most people leave 5-star reviews anyway. It's actually quite rare to get 4-star reviews, and even rarer to get 1 stars unless something's gone wrong. And even to this day, the easiest way to get reviews is just in person. Once you've finished a job, you've shown the customer everything's working, the customer's happy, just ask. You can just say something like you're trying to grow your local business, and people generally like helping out, and it makes them feel good. Reviews are a really big ranking factor, but they're not the only one. Google looks at a lot of things, especially distance, how close you actually are to the customer. That being said, in general, you can rank above businesses with 150 to 200 reviews with only 30 reviews, because there's a lot of things that get taken into consideration. And you can rank with 5 to 10 reviews around businesses that have 30. So if you see a business with 50 reviews, don't be discouraged. We see it all the time, and it really doesn't mean a lot. Of course, a lot of it also depends on your area and how strong the rest of your profile is, not just the review count. Another great thing about reviews is that Google is actually reading what people say in your reviews. If they use specific keywords, they check that. They're looking for things like, are people saying you helped with a boiler repair? Are they mentioning that you were on time, tidy, polite? These are all signals about your business and how you operate it. Again, these reviews, when people leave them, it's not about keyword stuffing, and it's not about keyword stuffing your replies either, but the best reviews naturally include your services and positive attributes. Google does see them. And one more thing is this: make sure you reply to every review within a few days. Google looks at that too, and it shows that your profile is active and managed properly. Another thing to talk about is the phases that you go through with reviews. If you're starting out, this might be useful to hear. Going from 0 reviews to 10 reviews usually feels the hardest and slowest, but once you get past that, things typically start to snowball. You have a higher reach, you get more leads, and collecting more reviews becomes easier. Then it just becomes about keeping that momentum going, and momentum is really important because a major ranking factor is review velocity, which is all about consistency. Google will often prioritize a business with 20 reviews, where 10 of them came in the last 2 months, over a business with 100 reviews that hasn't had any activity in the last 4 years. Even just 1 to 2 reviews a week in your business will compound massively over time. With 52 weeks in a year, that's 104 reviews just from doing the basics consistently. It adds up very quickly. So once you start collecting these reviews, just don't stop once you hit something like 60 or 100 and you're ahead of everyone in your local town. That's a trap. The profile will still keep growing even when you're ahead of others, and you still get benefits on top of that. Because it's a bit like the gym. Just because you can lift a 10-kilogram dumbbell and everyone else isn't training doesn't make you Mr. Olympia of the Google business profile world. And Google keeps rewarding your business the stronger you get. So you don't want to stop at the 10 kg mark. It doesn't just stop because you've got 30 reviews and everyone else is lazy and sitting at 10. And if you ever decide to sell your business and you stopped at 30 because everyone else stopped at 10, those reviews become a real valuable asset. Your Google business profile is no longer just a free listing that you signed up for. It becomes something that significantly increases the value of your business. All from reviews that took you 20 seconds to collect for work that you were already doing anyway. So don't stress about having loads straight away. Focus on getting them consistently and building momentum over time. A strong profile on its own can generate a lot of leads. And when you combine that with paid ads, that's when things really start to scale. Now, you might be wondering how you get reviews on this profile. And it's done through a review link that you can send to people over a QR code, depending on what you prefer. To get your review link, basically, once your business is verified, just go to your business and click the Ask for Reviews tab, which will be here. And while it's simple sending your review link to customers, there are actually different methods for collecting reviews, and I've included a link to some of them in the free tools section in the checklist. We don't have time to cover them all, but I'll make a separate video all about collecting reviews at another time. We've also included a review reply prompt in the sheets as a bonus. So if you ever do get reviews, that prompt will help you to come up with really good replies. Now, once you've worked through this checklist, you should have a profile that's more complete than 90% of plumbing businesses in your area. And that matters because a complete profile gives you a much stronger foundation to build on. It basically makes everything you do from here much more effective. And the good thing is, from here, the ongoing plan is actually very simple. There are just a few things that you want to do consistently as you go along. First, take photos at every job. It doesn't matter whether you think the job is special or not, to your customer and to Google, it's all useful. You want photos of different jobs, different houses, different boilers, different bathrooms, different situations. That's what builds trust and shows that you do this all the time. If you're worried you're going to have too many jobs, get to 500 first and then we can worry about that. Second, ask every customer for a review while you're there in person. And I mean every customer. Don't fall into the trap of trying to automate this with a new AI tool that someone promoted on Instagram, because there's a new one every week. Especially if you're just starting out, the strongest method is still asking in person, and you learn the most that way. It's a very useful skill to have. It helps you understand your customers better, it builds confidence, and it's a lot easier than most people think. And when you ask in person politely, once the job's done and they're happy, the quality of the reviews is way better than when people do it out of guilt because you message them a link and they feel obligated to do it. Most people are actually happy to support your business after you just help them out. The chances of them actually leaving a review are also way higher in person than if you were to send them a link. Because with a link, each day, the chance of them leaving it goes down and down, and then you have to message them again. And before you know it, you're not getting that review. And third, keep the profile active. Now, if you're managing this yourself, it just means adding photos, putting up a few posts a month, replying to reviews, and keeping your information accurate. That's enough to keep building up momentum each month. If you're working with a marketing agency that manages your profile like us, they'll have a process in place for this. So really the hard part is what we've just done here, getting the profile properly set up. After that, it becomes a lot simpler. And the businesses that keep doing the basics well are usually the ones that rise up ahead past everyone else. Competition levels will always vary, and so will starting points, but don't get discouraged by that. Even in competitive areas, you can still break through and get customers. You just have to be more intentional and understand that this becomes a longer term play. At that level, you're not really DIYing everything anymore. You're building a proper system, and that's where most businesses need proper support to scale it properly. Because Google doesn't just look at your profile at that point, it looks at things like your website, your service pages, your backlinks, your local citations, and how your Google business profile connects to everything in that list and everything else online. What you've done here is built a really strong foundation, and that's what allows everything else to work properly. Most businesses never get this part right, so give yourself a pat on the back. Instead, they try to lay expensive strategies on top of something that's fundamentally broken and pay marketing agencies having no idea what's actually happening behind the scenes. And that's why they don't see results. But once this is set up properly, that's when things like SEO, ads, and long-term growth for your website can actually start compounding. So hopefully that's given you a much clearer idea of how to actually set your Google business profile up. And if you followed along and worked through the checklist, you should now have a profile that's in a much stronger position than most plumbing businesses in your area. From here, it's just about doing the basics well, staying consistent, and improving things over time. If you found it useful, give the video a like, subscribe if you want more content like this, and check the links below for the checklist and everything else that you might have missed. And if you get to this point and decide you'd rather have all of this fully handled for you, there's a link below where you can book a call. I'll see you in the next one.